Now that the 2016 NFL Draft is kind of in the rear view mirror, I'm looking and I'm like, what is there to talk about now? What can I do to fill some time? I don't really know. Well, yeah, I do. And I'm sure some of you have been waiting for this. It's time to talk some 2016 NBA Draft for the next month or so. Hot damn! Yeah, so I'll do a few mock drafts. I'll do some topical videos in terms of you wondering about, am I going to do prospect scouting reports? I don't know. Maybe I'll do a few of them on maybe some of the biggest names. Maybe I won't. But I'll do some topical videos, and I will do some mock drafts once a week. This is my first 2016 NBA mock draft, and it's a one-round version. You can check out all 30 picks in the description box down below. Now that the lottery is over, I guess Philly fans are saying, hey, after all, we can trust the process. Oh, good Christ. But nonetheless, the lottery's over. We know the order of the first 14 picks for sure. You know, just at this point in time, put together a one-round mock based off of everything, and let's have at it. So the first interesting subplot for this 2016 NBA draft is going to be, who should the Philadelphia 76ers take at pick number 1? Is it Ben Simmons, the forward out of LSU that comes via Australia, the guy that we've been talking about for a year, is the number 1 pick? He's going to be the number 1 talent in this draft class. Or is it going to be the silky smooth, lean forward from Duke, Brandon Ingram, with the big-time shooting touch that reminds some of Kevin Durant? And this is going to be an interesting subplot. And I don't know at this moment in time if this organization has made their decision or knows for sure, or frankly should know for sure. Because when you look at Ben Simmons, you know, on the one hand, you're looking at a guy, he's the prototypical kind of point forward. He's a guy that you can play at the 3, a guy you can play at the 4. Offensively, he can create all types of mismatch problems. He's a solid rebounder for his position. You know, he's a good facilitator. He's really good at breaking people down off the dribble. He can do a lot of things. But on the flip side, is he thought of as the number 1 pick just because the media's been telling you for over a year that he's the number 1 pick? Is he really that special of a talent? Furthermore, you're talking about a team, if he was supposed to be so goddamn good and so special, how come he couldn't take LSU to the NCAA tournament in a boo-boo-ass SEC basketball conference? And you look at the way things played out towards the end of the year, you know, you kind of start to wonder, does he really possess that killer instinct, the leadership that you want out of a franchise guy? Is he really that type of a personality that could sit there and be that difference maker, to be that building block, to be that franchise piece? Or is he just another cog in the wheel, a very good cog in the wheel, but a cog in the wheel nonetheless? Furthermore, you look at him and you wonder what truly is his offensive potential. Now, granted, he's all of like 19 years old, and you have plenty of guys that come into the league that can't shoot. And I think back to LeBron James coming out of St. Vincent St. Mary's. He wasn't a really good shooter. He developed into being at least a solid shooter. Kobe Bryant wasn't a phenomenal shooter early on in his career. He became one. You know, Michael Jordan wasn't a great shooter early in his career, and he developed into one of the best mid-range shooters we've probably ever seen. I look at Dwayne Wade on the flip side, and he never was a great shooter, and he never has been a great shooter. And he's had a Hall of Fame career. You know, so shooting touch from the outside doesn't have to be everything. But I do wonder for a guy like this how much he really fits Philadelphia with that clog of schmaz of fuck bodies up front with Okafor and Noel, and in the future guys like Dario Saric and perhaps a Joel Embiid. You know, even if they peel one or those 2 guys off, they need guys that can space the floor. They need guys that can open up space down low. And is Ben Simmons really going to be the guy that can do that off the dribble? You know, when he can't shoot, our defense is going to be able to sag off of him. You know, it's a serious question, and I just wonder if he's kind of that prima donna personality that you really don't want to be bothered with. You know, is he really the best fit for Philadelphia? I personally do not think so, and I think at this moment in time, the pick should be Brandon Ingram. This, in a different sense, is somewhat reminiscent to me of the 2006 draft, or not, excuse me, 2006, 2007 draft, where you had Greg Oden, Kevin Durant. And I remember arguing with my friends at the time, it had to be Kevin Durant. I've been right about some things over the years and been wrong about plenty of things over the years. One of the things that I've been the most right about ever was the fact that, well, and I even went a step further and said Al Horford was a better NBA prospect than Greg Oden. Injuries or not, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I said when you look at Greg Oden, what his upside and what his potential could be, people assume a 20-point per game scorer, 12 to 13 rebounds, 2.5 to 3 blocks. All-star type of top 3 center in the league. You look at Kevin Durant's upside, his upside is a 30-point per game scorer that can take over late and close games out. that has to be the guy. That is the superior player. That is the guy that you build your franchise around. It's not the 60s, 70s, 80s anymore where you're building around the center. It's a perimeter-based game now. And you must get those guys that can do that. And when I look at that type of scoring upside, I see more of that scoring upside out of Brandon Ingram than I do Ben Simmons. So at this moment, I've got Brandon Ingram going number one. Frankly, I think the fit for Ben Simmons is much better in Los Angeles anyways. I think the fit for Brandon Ingram is much better in Philadelphia. Now, sure, Philly could probably make it work with Ben Simmons, and the Lakers could make it work with Brandon Ingram. And either way, whatever they do, they're not bad choices. It's just, for me, I think the best fit for all parties involved is Ingram in Philadelphia because they need a shooter, and he will get a lot of shots there. And the Lakers need somebody like Ben Simmons that could be that primary facilitator so that way Clarkson and Russell can play more off the ball. I think in an ideal world, it goes Ingram 1 and Simmons 2, and I don't even think it should be questioned. After that, though, is where this draft starts to get interesting. Now, for me, when you look at my mock draft down below, the first 6 picks, I feel pretty confident, are what should be the first 6 picks. Like, not a lot of variation to me. It doesn't mean that's the way it will be, but that's the way, to me, it should be. I look at the Boston Celtics. I could make an argument for Dragan Bender. There's no question about that. 18-year-old with that type of size and skill and shooting ability is something that the Boston Celtics could definitely use long-term if they're looking to get a star. But for the time being, I think they could still find a star that gives them more immediate impact and better fits what they're trying to do in Jamal Murray. I mean, do you really feel comfortable about playing Avery Bradley and Evan Turner as your top 2 wing players? You know, yeah, you've got a Jay Crowder, but he's more of that hustle type of glue guy. You need a guy, to me, that can help space the floor for an Isaiah Thomas, a guy that can play some with the ball, but play a lot without the ball. And I look at Jamal Murray sometimes, I wonder, with all the focus on Brandon Ingram and Ben Simmons, if we don't give enough attention to Jamal Murray and just how good of a prospect he could be out of Kentucky. To me, he's the logical fit here over a Buddy Hield. I know there's going to be plenty of debate about Jamal Murray versus Buddy Hield. I look at Jamal Murray, though, and I see a guy with more all-around skill than a Buddy Hield, especially a little bit better in terms of being able to create off the dribble and create his own shot, and a little bit of a better facilitator than Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is kind of like that. You know, he's almost, you look at him, and he's like a better version of a J.J. Redick at the NBA level in some ways. Looking at the Celtics and what they need, I think they need a Jamal Murray more than they need a Buddy Hield. That's why I've got Buddy Hield going 5 to Minnesota, because I think he's the ideal fit for them. You know, maybe there are, in theory, better players on the board. In my opinion, there very well are better players on the board. But in terms of fit, you know, when we talk about NBA drafts, we talk about philosophies. To me, it's ridiculous 3-4 straight years to always pick the same player at the same position that does the same type of thing. I think that's just a waste. That's stupid. Furthermore, I don't think you can necessarily just draft for need, but I don't always know that you should be drafting for best available player, period, because sometimes it's about that fit and what they can do within the confines of the chemistry of your team. When you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, now you're bringing in Thibodeau, and everybody's all giggly tits about that. You know, you've got Karl Anthony Towns, you've got Andrew Wiggins, you've got a nice foundation, you've got other pieces in place like Gorgie Jang and Zach LaVine and Ricky Rubio. One thing they could use is more shooting on the outside to help space the floor better, a guy that could play off the ball, that can move without the basketball, that could open up things down low for guys like Jang and Karl Anthony Towns. And Buddy Hield is the best answer in this draft to me for the Minnesota Timberwolves to do just that. Now, if they got a Jamal Murray, it might even be long-term even better. But for the moment, I think Buddy Hield is that best fit. For the Phoenix Suns at number 4, if they sit here and take a guard, they're stupid. I'm sorry. And even if they take a wing, it's kind of stupid too. This is a team that needs some pop out of their front court. They need something out of their front court. They're in a position where they can kind of gamble and roll the dice. They need to gamble and roll the dice on Dragan Bender. I don't know if he's Porzingis good, but I think the kid could be really good at the NBA level. I really do. If you remember, I was very big on Porzingis last year. I'm not quite as big on Bender, but I'm pretty big on Bender. I like a lot of what he does, and I think he's slightly more athletic than Porzingis, even though he's not quite as big and put together as Porzingis was coming out of Latvia. Number 6, I've got Jakob Poeltl, the center from Utah, going to New Orleans. The Pelicans need some backcourt help. They could use a shooter to space the floor for Davis. There's no question about that. But what they really could use to me is a competent center that can provide some defensive presence to complement Anthony Davis, and then on the offensive end, be able to stretch the floor a little bit. Not have to sit there and be a guy that stands out at the three-point line, but a guy that can play off and away from Davis on the opposite side, on the weak side, and be able to hit that 15 to 18-foot baseline or elbow jumper. And Poeltl, I think, can do that. And when I look at the best fits for the Pelicans as a team that should be looking to get back into the playoff mix next year, long term, are you going to continue to roll with centers like Omer Asik and Alexis Ajinça? I don't think so. You need to roll with a Poeltl here because he makes such a world of sense to me, and I love the fit of him next to Anthony Davis. In terms of the other lottery picks here, I'll just go through them. I won't focus on anything past 14. Marquese Kris from Washington, I really love his upside. I have some concerns. A guy that doesn't rebound well in college tends to not rebound well at the NBA level. But when I look at the athletic ability of this guy and the athletic upside of this guy and some of the skill that he has already as a 19-year-old, I'm intrigued for the future and the possibilities of who he could be. And you're looking at the Denver Nuggets, they need that type of athleticism and skill up front, and I think he makes a world of sense. One of the most logical picks to me for all parties involved in this draft is Kris Dunn, number 8 to Sacramento. In a draft class that's pretty weak in point guards, Dunn is by far and away to me the best pure point guard in this draft, or the closest thing to a pure point guard that deserves a top 10 pick. Sacramento needs a long-term answer because Rondo is most certainly not going to be it. Kris Dunn, number 8, Sacramento. This has to be the pick here. For Kris Dunn, frankly, and for the Sacramento Kings as well. It makes too much sense for both parties involved. Number 9, you look at Toronto. I think DeMar DeRozan is very likely to leave in free agency to go somewhere like the Los Angeles Lakers. So if he goes, obviously wing help is going to be a huge priority. He could go front court help here, finding somebody better at the 4, like maybe a Dejounte Davis, something like that. Maybe they'll go for a bigger guy with some upside and skill like a Skai Labisserie from Kentucky. But I love the fit of Jaylen Brown here. Even if DeRozan does come back, you get some more wing depth off of the bench, a high athletic upside type of guy. And if he doesn't, you need to find potentially the next DeRozan, and maybe Brown could be that type of guy. Dejounte Murray, number 10 to Milwaukee. Milwaukee tends to like those guys that don't have a true position, but they can play them all over the place, bring them some versatility in their lineup. I look at Michael Carter-Williams. Is he really going to be a long-term point guard? Probably not. Is Dejounte Murray necessarily really a point guard at the NBA level? Probably not. More of a combo guard. But again, I don't know that the Milwaukee Bucks value those true positional fits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as other teams do. They like those longer guys that can play multiple positions that you could do different things with. And I think with Dejounte Murray, you can do that. And the upside for this kid, again, is incredible. So I think number 10 here, I'd be willing to roll the dice if I'm the Bucks. Dejounte Davis, number 11. To the Orlando Magic. You've got Aaron Gordon manning the 4, but you wonder sometimes if he's not better off playing a bigger, stronger 3. Now you can bring in a Dejounte Davis with Vucevic at the center position. You get a guy that is a good complement in terms of his rebounding, his ability to block some shots. I like this fit. I like this pick for the Orlando Magic. Number 12, Utah. They're in a position where they don't really need to address a lot in terms of the front court. If this was a better draft for point guards, a point guard would make sense here, but it doesn't. So at this point in time, maybe you just gamble on athletic upside and you gamble on the Korkmaz guy from Turkey. Here's a wing at 6'7". He's not very big, but he's very skilled with the ball and a good shooter that can help space the floor. Utah could use some of that. This seems to be a good spot. And I think in general in this draft, you're going to see a few more guys from the international scene go in round 1 than you have the past couple of years. It's a solid international class, and Korkmaz arguably is the number 2 international prospect in this draft, although some might point to Luwawu, out of France, and I've got him going 15 to Denver. 13, Skai Labisserie from Kentucky going 13. If Korkmaz is on the board there at 13 for Phoenix, he probably would be the pick. They might even draft and stash him for a year or two since they have 3 first-rounders. They could probably draft and stash somebody at some point in time. But here with Labisserie, you're talking about a guy, he's a project, and he's going to need work. And is he going to be better off being a stretch 4 or a stretch 5 at the NBA level? What's his defensive upside going to be? Is he going to be able to bang down low? Those are questions there. But there is some intrigue there in terms of his skill, in terms of his upside. And for a team that desperately needs to get some upside and some production out of their big men down low at the 4 and at the 5, he makes a lot of sense. Now for the Bulls, I know there's going to be a lot of thoughts of when you look and you're going to see Henry Ellenson on the board in my mock, and you're going to see Domantas Sabonis on the board. You're going to sit there and say, well, why wouldn't they take one of them? You know, they very well could. And I wouldn't necessarily have a huge problem with that because a lot of people are going to look at Noah's probably gone. Gasol's probably gone. There's not a lot down low for the Bulls. They need some help down low. I agree. But this is a team that could use some help in the backcourt too. And in particular, what they could use is for the time being a short-term backup point guard behind Derrick Rose and potentially a long-term replacement for Derrick Rose at the point guard position. And I like the fit of Demetris Jackson from Notre Dame for the Bulls at 14. Maybe this is a bit high to take him by maybe 6 to 8 picks, I grant you, but I really love the fit here. I love the fit of him being a guy that can play on the floor with both Rose and Butler in certain lineups. Here's a guy that can also long-term potentially play with Butler, but he doesn't have to be a ball-dominant guard. Here's a guy that can play a little bit off the ball. Here's a guy they could count on to help space the floor and open things up for Jimmy Butler and Nikola Mirotic and others. I really like the fit of Demetris Jackson. And as much as I would love to sit there and see the Bulls address the front court, and they need to, even with guys maybe in the mix still like Bobby Portis and Taj Gibson and Mirotic, they need more help in the front court. They need some defense. They need some athletic defenders down low. They really could use a better option at the point guard position off the bench other than Aaron Brooks. And I think Demetris Jackson brings that to them. This is my first 2016 NBA mock draft. I anticipate some changes. I don't think this is going to be as fluid as what you might see out of my NFL mock drafts, but I would expect some things to change. But as I see it at this moment, this is what it is. You don't like it, eat shit.